Hello, welcome to yet another video of Acharya Nidana Academy. Today, we are going to discuss the effect of Nidana in the body, how we are going to analyze it with the help of present understanding. So, before going into that particular topic, let us look into some of the concepts as usual. Suppose if you are knowing the physics, chemistry, and biology, and Ayurveda fundamentals, then any of the fundamental explained in Ayurveda can be learned with the deepest understanding. Second, whenever we are going to learn a particular topic, we have to practice the concept of minimalism. Minimalism in the sense one particular topic, take one particular topic and gather the information from multiple angles so that we can able to go deep or dive deep into that particular topic. Third major concept, if you are knowing the concepts of Kriya Sharira from each and every corner, then learning Roganidana is not at all difficult. If you are knowing the Roganidana concept from each and every corner, then learning Kaya Chikitsa is not at all a difficult thing. So, the fourth major concept, that is the motto of the academy, is pattern modification, pattern first of all identification, pattern modification, and pattern creation. For this, let me give you an example. Suppose if a person is taking the buttermilk, sour buttermilk, from the past 10, 12, or 15 days at night time, as it is having the soreness, it is naturally going to get increase the pitta dosha in the body. So, the naturally, if a person continuously consuming, that is identifying a particular pattern. So that is the pitta dosha vitiation there. Pattern modification. So that means the person has to subside or a person has to reduce the intake of sour buttermilk so that the pitta vitiation will be minimized. And pattern creation. So that means a new pattern has to be adopted or consumed so that pitta vitiation will be there. In the sense there will be kapha dosha increase. So that means if a person is consuming the substances which are prepared of madhura rasa to a little bit extent, so that is actually responsible for the pitta dosha vitiation. Lastly, there is no compromise in the Ayurveda fundamentals that will be done during this particular description. So regarding the before going to the particular Nidana analysis, first of all, how we are going to gather the information. So that is, it is just like moving in a railway track. So on these two tracks which are being separated throughout with the small, that is the connections in between. So that means if you are learning the Ayurveda information, learn it through the Ayurveda way, or if you are learning the Western information, learn it through the Western way, and try to connect the informations at regular intervals. So if you are able to connect it, so and if it is each and every step, if you are able to connect it, then it is identifiable that we are moving in the right direction. So that means, so whenever if you are going into learn the Ayurveda, so it is just like learning a new language. Take one particular term and learn it in the same way as that is being mentioned here, that is the railway tracks, right? Okay, so regarding the effect of Nidana in the human body, so let me give you one particular small term, that is Vishamashana. So of course it is multiple etiological factors are being mentioned. So today we are going to discuss only about the Vishamashana. So Vishamashana is the one, it is the type of the food intake, that is abnormal food intake. The person will not be taking the same kind of the food throughout the day or throughout the particular season. So that is responsible for the disturbed dosha function in the body. So here the term Vishama refers to irregularity. So that means the proper pattern is not being followed. Irregular in terms of timing, irregular in terms of the amount, Amount in the sense, if some of the occasions the person will be taking too little amount of the food, and in some of the occasions the person will be taking too large amount of the food at a particular time. This is specifically happening in the Indian housewives. Why? Because to uh, check, to save, or to uh, manage the food prepared at home, these Indian housewives usually take the food at the end. So at that particular occasion, there may be a possibility that the same amount of the food may not be available at the end. So that is why the varied amount of the food that will be observed at the end, and that is the reason these people, or the housewives specifically, or otherwise in sometimes even the hoteliers, they are going to consume the food sometimes too little, sometimes too large amount. And this is even happening in terms of the special occasions such as marriage function, etc., etc. And timing too early. So that means when you consider, suppose a person is having this food intake at around 8:30 p.m., 8:30 a.m., 1 p.m., and 7 p.m. Too early in the sense, instead of taking the food at around 1 p.m., he will be taking the food at around 10:30 or 11 a.m. So that means the gap between the two food substances is very, very narrow. So that is too early. And too late in the sense, instead of taking the food at around 1 p.m., he is going to take the food at around 3 or 3:30 p.m. So this is also considered to be not at all the ideal as far as the digestion of the food substances are concerned. Further, regarding the quality of the food, of course, this particular thing is not being discussed whether while discussing about the terminology of Vishamashana. Quality of the food, too cold. So that means if a person is taking the food substances too cold and too hot, this we are going to do every day whenever we are going to into the hotels. We are going to take the chapatis or the those sides. They are going to take the too hot as such. Whereas immediately after that, we are going to consume the ice creams or juices, cold juice. This is a Vishamashana only. And too dry and too unctuous. So, too dry without adding the ghee, etc., we are going to take the chapati. And too unctuous, too much adding the oil in the side dishes. They are considered to be Vishamashana. That means the human body will get confused which one to take. In that way, so that is actually responsible for the total disturbed dosha balance in the body. Now let us look into dive deep into this particular Vishamashana. So here Vishamashana, totally 5 different ways we can able to learn. So before going into that particular Vishamashana, so first of all let us learn the transit time which we have discussed during the Ama portion. Just look into this particular part, Ama. So when you look into that, so transit time means it is the transport of the food substances from the oral cavity to the anal cavity. So that means in the mouth it may be remaining for around 2 minutes or so. In the esophagus that may uh, be in seconds, whereas in the stomach it may remain for around 2 hours or so, whereas in the small intestine it may be remaining around 6 hours, whereas in the large intestine it may take 24 to 48 hours. So that is the what is considered to be gut transit time. So if the person is doing the adhyasana, what actually happens? If the person is taking the food substance too early, it will be having the similar effects of adhyasana. So that means already the food substances are remaining in the stomach. You are again adding the food substances again. So that means that will be responsible for the closure of the pyloric antrum at that particular point of time, and the food may remain for more than 2.5 hours or so in this particular occasion. So that means So that is responsible for the effects of adhyasana. So you have to look into that particular concept of ama there. Then you can learn the concept well in this particular occasion. If you are considering too late consumption, so that means whenever if a person is taking the food substances too late frequently, what actually happens? So the this will be leading to the decreased HCl secretion at a particular point of time. When there is decreased secretion of the HCl, that will be considered to be inactivation. So that means activation of a pepsinogen into pepsin will not be happening. So that means too late consumption is responsible for the decreased gastric juice secretion. Thereby, the ama formation may take place in the stomach. Too late consumption if a person is doing that. And too little amount of food intake. Too little amount of food intake in the sense, instead of taking the 3 or 4 chapatis, if he is taking only 1 chapati, so that is what is considered to be too little food intake. That is actually responsible for the, as such we have discussed in the previous slide, so that is the decreased HCl secretion, thereby decreased pepsin activity, thereby hampered digestion may be there. Whereas too large amount of food, this is specifically in marriages or very specific occasions such as festivals, etc. When we are visiting our parental home, that is actually responsible for the over adequate amount of food consumption. Suppose if this is the occasion in this amount, so the person may be consuming the food. In that particular situation, the food which are being present somewhere around the esophagus cannot be able to digest it, because the secretion will be taking place of the gastric juice will be taking place in the pyloric end of the stomach. So that means this is what is considered to be responsible for the indigestion itself. So sometimes this may be responsible for the vomiting also. So like that, the proper digestion will not be taking place even the person is taking the food substances too large amount. So next, about the diversified food consumption. If a person is consuming sometimes related to very snigdha food substances in one particular food intake time, and immediately if he is taking the ruksha food substances or dry food substances, sometimes he is consuming the ushna or shita substances, that is hot substances or cold substances at a particular point of time. This is actually responsible for the confusion to the human body itself. So like that, so this is actually responsible for the disturbances of the gastrointestinal tract. So the take home messages from today's session will be: the term Vishama refers to irregular pattern. So that means this can be irregularity can be identified in 3 different headings: quantity of the food, timing of the food, and quality of the food. Quantity of the food, that will be sometimes too little amount of the food will be taken, sometimes too large amount of food will be taken. Whereas timing of the food, sometimes too early food substances, sometimes too late food substance consumption. Whereas quality of the food, so that means the same pattern, the same quality of the food will not be taken by an individual at a particular time or at a particular season. So that means this is what is considered irregularity, is the main characteristic feature of Vata dosha. So that means if a person is not following a particular pattern, naturally, so there will be Vata dosha increase in the body. Right? So dear friends, so here ends the video. What you are supposed to do is see this particular video completely and apply it to the different scenarios, so which you are frequently observing. And if you are able to learn some of the major key learnings, then please mention below in the comment section. And if you want to have something new to learn, then that also can be mentioned in the comment section below. And so if you are really liking the video, then share it to the maximum number of true Ayurveda learners, so that we can create a movement from this particular small message. Right? Thank you.